Watch Jefferson climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness!
Welcome one, welcome all. After a fun day of college football yesterday, NFL preseason as well, and we also had a bunch of action in the FIBA streets, the NASCAR. I mean, it was a full day yesterday, and couldn't have it any better. Fall is finally approaching. Football is back, and we got the last preseason game of the season, of the year tonight. It's the Texans versus the Saints. Kurt, you have the free Showdown playbook up. Free Showdown projections will be available a little bit later from Bruce. And we just have a great time ahead of us. The last preseason slate. Kurt, how are you doing today?
Good. FIBA started awesome today. Went 3-1 on props. The one we lost was Cat, under 10.5 rebounds. Like all the exhibition games, he was getting like 6 boards, 5 boards. And now all of a sudden he decides to be a man, which is crazy. I will
got it by the hook.
Yeah. The thing is, I'm not even going to blame it on that. I thought he'd be way under. So that's on me. I thought he would get like 7 or 8. Delgado usually is a rebounder for him, and Cat kind of just plays a true 4, just kind of like he does in the NBA now with Gobert beside him. But 3-1. We hit a plus money when Roka Shogabitis killed his. I wish we could have done the alt overs, but yeah, nice to know that we officially have those on the site now. So sign up, Run Pure Sports, use 20% off NFL 20 and get some FIBA picks, man. You can pay for your sub. Look, man, I was hitting like 65% in the EL props last year, so you can pay for your sub in a month on a 2-week FIBA bets. But
that's the fun part, especially with the bet side of things. We got a bunch of bets being rifled in. I know Snyder, I think he's 8-0. And the college football bets, I think we had UMass, Notre Dame, and Vanderbilt. We went 2-1 there that I had bet, and then Buffalo Bills -1 yesterday. So it was a good time yesterday. I mean, the bets have never been hotter. So it's great. And then tonight, Texans Saints, you have the over under. You did the Showdown playbook. It's got spread and everything. It's over under 38. The spread is 2.5 with the Saints favorites and the Texans slight dogs. So, yeah, we'll go in position by position a little bit. I know it's a Showdown slate. It's kind of looking a little bit gross. Hopefully it's a 50-50 split, like you said, at quarterback with Winston and Haener. And that could definitely be the case, but it's kind of looking like a defense and kicker slate, Kurt. Let's go ahead and start with the quarterback position. Start with the Saints. Jameis Winston, obviously, he had a great performance last time out. He looked pretty good. I do like how, he threw a dot there down the left sideline too last week. Is Winston getting a full half? And if so, what should I play him?
So, he looks so good. I really don't see why they would, but they just seem adamant on playing him a decent amount, which, hey, do you, I guess. But I think even in a quarter and a half, he's been so good, and that offense has been so dialed. The stars have looked good. Jameis has looked good. Heiner's looked good. I think it's just the system is clicking. Maybe it's a preseason thing. We'll find out soon in the regular season. But, yeah, I think you can play him. But just be on the lookout. Be Twitter searching his name and make sure that he's like, oh, Jameis is going to play 1 or 2 series, and then Heiner's playing the rest of the game. So I think that's very possible. So keep Twitter searching. If we don't get any news, I suspect a 1.5 quarters to a half for Jameis Winston. I think he's definitely in play. I think Heiner is probably just kind of the lock of the slate. If you're only entering 1 into the lotto, maybe you fade Heiner in that one, hope he doesn't score. He only gets like 2 or 3 points. But you kind of just have the free square there with Heiner, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The Saints haven't been the best with news. Obviously, we saw Kendra Miller play like an entire half last time out, which was kind of tilting.
On one leg.
Yeah, because he was supposed to be out for the entire preseason and then comes back, not even for the last game, but the second game of the preseason, plays an entire half, got a ton of usage. I just think they're trying to get these rookie running backs reps. And I know it's not just a Saints thing, right? Roshan Johnson played deep into the game yesterday. Tank Bigsby played, the entire first half. Obviously, it's looking like a 1-2 punch there in Jacksonville. But these rookie running backs are just trying to get some reps, especially guys who were taken later on in the draft a little bit. Not to say Kendra Miller was taken too late. I think he was a 3rd rounder, or was he a 5th?
I believe so. Third sounds right.
Yeah, 3rd sounds right. Obviously, he's explosive. Obviously, got into the box. He had the 71st pick. I don't hate the idea of going back to Kendra Miller with limited news, just because I can just see him getting reps. We saw it with Roshan Johnson yesterday. I saw you tilting in the chat there. So, yeah, these running backs. I stick with the quarterback though. Winston same way. No news. I'll stick with him with a half, and no news with Haener, however you pronounce it. these wide receivers don't look great, Kurt. I mean, I might as well play Heiner and Winston almost if I'm picking quarterbacks. Is there anyone on the Texans side of the ball that I should have interest in at quarterback?
At quarterback, not unless we get news. I really think they're just going to kind of like what Carolina's doing with Bryce Young. They're going to play him all 3 games, play him a little bit. And then they got like 4 guys. Like Perry was getting some snaps this week too. So, I mean, they really might play 4 dudes. Just monitor the news. But as of right now, we're preparing as if they're going to play 4 guys, and you just fade.
All right. So say they do play 4 guys. All right. So just to extend the show a little bit, which one has the most rushing upside on any of these, Texans quarterbacks, to where if they ran one in, they're unowned, could they make the optimal? Which one would it be?
I mean, if we're talking rushing, I'd probably say Perry, even though he didn't run that much at Miami. But I would just play Stroud. Stroud has a good drive. I mean, not that he's going to rush, but like, I think you just play the starter and maybe he hooks up with Nico Collins or something like that in the first drive. That's kind of what I've been leaning towards. If I'm forced to play a situation like that, just give me the starter for the 1 or 2 series, probably behind the starting offensive line. He won't be against the Saints starters. So that's a plus for Stroud, Yeah,
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, we saw it with Bryce Young and Adam Thielen. Bryce Young was clicking early. Obviously, if the Saints don't run out their main guys and stuff like that, you could easily see the first possession for the Texans do rather well. And hell, what if you got 2 to 3 series and it ends up, instead of, the Steelers situation where obviously both running backs ran one in, what if, Stroud threw 2 touchdowns? So I think that's a good point. Definitely worth, maybe keeping tabs on it. It's not the most optimal play, but if you're doing tournaments, large field stuff, I hate playing the starter because they do tend to get ownership anyway, but he'll still be pretty low owned. And maybe you could pair him if you had balls to really make your lineup a little bit unique. Let's move on to running backs. Obviously, Kendra Miller was a tilt last week. Ellis Merriweather did play quite a bit. Wasn't the worst situation for us. We just expected a little bit more work. And even Darrell Williams, I mean, these running backs, if we got word that Kendra Miller was sitting, it would be Williams and Merriweather show. You could even play both of them. If Kendra Miller is in, maybe you want to limit yourself to just one Saint running back, right?
I agree there, 100%. Just play, because we saw that they don't care to play him a full half on that bum knee. So, and then it would just be the second half split, which, it's not like either of these guys are like McLaughlin for Denver, who's been awesome. They could find the end zone, but I'd probably just limit to just one for sure. I really hope he doesn't play. I mean, like, the guy's a roster lock. I don't see why you'd play him. 10 carries last week. I mean, he had it wasn't just the carries. He had how many touches total? Had 13 touches total. It's just
13 touches.
Blows my mind. So we'll see.
I mean, if you had to choose between one, I'm going to throw it in. I'm going to throw the situation in here, right? Would you pair Merriweather and Williams in one of your main teams if Kendra Miller sat?
I think I have to.
Yeah, I think the usage is that important because obviously we'll get the kicker a little later on, but the Texans, they have you said Fairbairn. He's the only kicker on the roster. And then what about the other kicking situation?
What are you talking about? New Orleans has that too. Remember, they both hit the optimal. They both would have hit the optimal if someone played him.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. So Fairbairn wasn't Fairbairn with the Saints before?
I don't remember him with the Texans. Cammy Fairbairn. I don't remember him with the Texans. He definitely was somewhere else, but I can't remember.
Yeah. I mean, so basically Fairbairn's the only kicker. We're not playing the split kicker game at all. So yeah, I'm definitely with you there. But obviously
it's a true battle too. Like, it's a true battle. Both are playing very well, and if one gets cut, the other will probably have a job in the NFL somewhere. So it's a tight battle. It's not like,
it makes sense. Let's move on to the Texans side of running backs. Obviously, it's not as great, but you said that, is Ogun Abale and Dokes are not practicing still yet in the playbook. So Mike Boone, he would be the biggest boom at running back if they both sat. So talk to me about the Texans running back situation.
So pretty simple. If we see that Agumbawale or Dokes, it can be just one of them. If they're in uniform, and we also get word that the starters for the Texans are going to play anywhere from 2 to like 4 series, I think it's just we completely fade because they were giving Devin Singletary some of the second quarter work too. So then that would leave us with 3 running backs for them to have the entire second half, which is still a lot for me. So even if one's in uniform, hard fade for me. If they both are not in uniform, I think we could see a good amount of Mike Boone. Larry Roundtree just signed with them 3 days ago. signed with them like 10 days ago. So he's had time now. Probably sees a little bit more snaps. I assume that he's signed because they really don't think that Agumbawale and Dokes are going to be active. So I think we can probably play a Houston running back here, which is weird because we've not really been able to attack Houston much all preseason. They've had so many freaking bodies, but it's looking like we might have a choice here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that'll definitely be something to keep tabs on. I mean, obviously, Larry Roundtree signing does probably signal that both those running backs might be sitting. So, yeah, I could be down for some Mike Boone. I mean, I think he's been a preseason hero for us before with Minnesota. So I don't mind that at all. I mean, I think I would limit on this slate a max of 2 running backs. I don't know. Are you in agreement there? I mean, it's kind of gross going more than that.
It depends how the news falls, man. Like, it's so like, I mean, if we get news that the Saints starter, like, well, we don't expect him to play, but we get new Kendrick Miller's out, and then we get news that Texans are going to play hardly any of their starters, and then it's like we're looking at the entire game for Mike Boone, Larry Roundtree, Merriweather, and Williams, like the entire game for those guys.
That's
so then,
yeah,
that makes 3 in play.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm looking at it, and the wide receivers seem like a little bit weak. I have obviously A.T. Perry, after an amazing week 1, didn't really do all that much last week. And there's not like a ton of wide receivers that pop off the page and stuff. I mean, Brian Edwards, you also have listed. Yeah, A.T. Perry. Hell, you can even throw in the pass catching of Lucas Kroll. I mean, and then Xavier Hutchinson for Texans. You say it's a tough cookie to crack. And what are we doing with the wide receivers? Are they as great as some of these showdowns have been for them?
No, we've been blessed with some really good receiving options on these showdowns. Like, guys, they're getting a lot of work. Watkins for Cleveland, we've mentioned a couple times. But this one's a little gross. I will say I love Brian Edwards. Let a lot of people down last week. These Saints receivers, it kind of has been roulette. There will be a Saints receiver in the optimal. The way this offense is moving, there will be a Saints wide receiver in the optimal. So that's maybe why you probably do only do the 2 running backs, just because one of these Saints receivers is going to find the end zone. I'm going Brian Edwards. Let a lot of people down last week. Still had 4 targets, though, and still led the team in snaps. And I think A.T. Perry is closer to a roster lock than Edwards, like a lot closer. So I think Edwards will be battling out and probably playing 50-plus snaps again. And then you got like some of the wild cards like John Trey Kirkland and Shaquan Davis didn't practice, but he had an awesome game last week, so we need to monitor that. Lynn Bowden didn't practice, so we might be looking at a pretty banged-up room here. Kirk Merritt returned, so I'm probably going to go back to him at low ownership. He's listed as a receiver still, I believe, but he is running with the running backs.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do like the call. I mean, obviously, I've been a little bit more aggressive in the preseason with like, I want to min of 1 wide receiver on some of these teams. So you're saying that situation could be very apparent for the Saints tonight.
Edwards got cut. Edwards got cut last week.
Edwards got cut?
Yeah, Edwards got cut last week. I remember that. That's why. So
all right,
let me
perfect.
All
right. So
I remember seeing that last week, but I mean, obviously some of these depth charts aren't updated. So let's go through this right now.
Yeah, talk to me about the Saints wide receiver who benefits with Edwards now out.
You gotta think Kirkland would keep. I mean, that guy's electric. So let's
Kirkland had a couple of big catches down the sideline. Yeah. He made some big plays against the Chargers, and I saw him, and I was getting excited because I did a min of 1 wide receiver, I think, for the Saints. And Kirkland almost got me to the promised land.
I mean, this wide receiver room is going to be super thin after the starters set. You're going to have, let's count them up here. You got, if Shaheed comes back, he's banged up. I really don't know why you'd run him out here. He's a roster lock too. So let's assume that Shaheed doesn't play. A.T. Perry, maybe Traquan gets a couple of snaps. Keith Kirkwood, Quan Baker, Kirkland. Merritt's running with the running back, so we got 5. Shaquan Davis isn't practicing. Lynn Bowden is practicing. James Washington got released. So we're looking at 5 wide receivers.
Huh. Yeah, no kidding. And we also, so obviously with like, the quarterback sitting, you wouldn't imagine that like Olave and them are going to play really at all. I mean, Shaheed's coming off an injury too. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely be entertained with a lot of A.T. Perry and Jonte Kirkland a little bit here, Kurt. And especially, with what you're saying, I mean, Quan Baker will probably be low owned. That's intriguing. I mean, it is. I mean, obviously we've seen passing games absolutely fail. I think the Patriots the other day, despite having, limited bodies and stuff, I think they completed 0 passes in the second half. So, I do want to caution, let's stray a little cautious, with the wide receivers for the most part. But if a situation as good as that, especially if we get word that like Olave, Thomas, and Shaheed could all sit, I mean, it'll be hard to not at least get there on volume alone. So that's a great point. I mean, obviously Saints wide receivers to the moon, Texans wide receivers. I mean, I imagine they're definitely not as great. I mean, is Xavier Hutchinson the top Texans wide receiver?
I'm sorry, I just can't get over these Saints wide receivers. It's going to be that I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep going on here, but it's only 10:30. What's it matter? But like they have to assume Lynn Bowden or Davis is going to make like a random recovery, right? Or because if not, holy crap, it is going to be such a thin room. I think we might captain a Saints wide receiver.
Okay, now you're talking my language. All right, wow. So Saints captain wide receiver. You say it would be A.T. Perry as your number one guy, right?
And then right behind him, Kirkland. So I think it's pretty simple. Like you do, like if you are really higher on Haener and you're fading Winston, you do the Kirkland with Haener. And then if you're higher on or if you're going to play Winston and Haener, then you captain A.T. Perry because he'll get snaps with both.
So let's act here real quick. Lucas Kroll, just going on with the pass catcher, stuff.
Yeah.
8 targets last week, looked really good. I mean, no one's going to want to play a tight end here. No one is. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. We saw Charlie Collier and Volacek or whatever his name is. They were both unknown last time, despite getting a massive snap share. I mean, Kroll might be a little bit, might be given a little more attention with 8 targets last week. But people don't want to play tight ends, especially in Showdown. I mean, is he a captain option? I don't want to captain a tight end. Look, I'm even bringing it up.
If that's why because Lynn Bowden went down and then Davis got hurt last week too. So you have to imagine that's why Kroll got like the snaps bumped, the targets bumped, because there wasn't that many bodies out there. So I think he probably just got a bump in the slot. It's like slot snaps. If this unless there's someone they've signed that I'm missing, I think Kroll, I don't know about captain because you're going to get so much leverage just by playing a tight end. Because just 2 catches for like 22 yards, that's fine. Whereas, the wide receivers can catch a true bomb. But yeah, Bowden is still injured. A.T. Perry's going to get limited. He could, but like I said, they've been so effective in the first and second quarter. Perry could do it in the first 2 drives. That's why. But yeah, I agree. I do think it's doubtful that he plays into the second. It's probably like a 20% chance he plays in the second half.
I will say this, just because of what we saw last week, Kendra Miller was injured, right? And so A.T. Perry, is he going to get limited? I can't trust Dennis Allen to limit anyone after he didn't limit Kendra Miller last week.
Love that you brought that up too.
It makes sense. I trust. We saw it was the Patriots, Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, both. Kayshon Boutte's case, he didn't play after the first drive. Demario Douglas was inactive for the game. I mean, Dennis Allen seems a little bit like a wild cannon. I mean, that's just. I don't know. I think the logic is there, but Perry does have upside, did have big playability at Wake Forest. I mean, if he's one of the active wide receivers, I just think they'll play him.
Yeah, and you know what, real quick, let's just go over I hate to keep talking about it, but it's a main part of the slate, and it's going to be a key to winning GPPs today. But let's go over the snap counts. Week 2 for the Saints at wide receiver. So, first of all, Kirkland, 64%. Kroll, the tight end, I'm putting him as a pass catcher, 56%. Brian Edwards, 51%. He gone. A.T. Perry, 46%. Lynn Bowden, 42%. He's hurt. Shaquan Davis, 36%. He's hurt. Kwan Baker, 26%. That gets bumped up if these guys are all out. And then Kirk Merritt, he's playing running back. He played like 1 snap and got hurt because I guess he didn't want me to win money. I had 46% last week and he was like 8%. And I was in shambles. But yeah, so that's what we're looking at wide receiver. I guess Kirkwood was an inactive last week.
So it looks like Kirkwood was. So
they've been terrible with news, bro.
Who is Shaquan Davis?
He had a good game last week.
Let's see. He did?
Yeah.
Okay, so he got 83% of the snaps in the slot last week, or not last week, through 2 preseason games, according to John Sigler on X, or Twitter, as it must be called. So I mean that's intriguing if you're going to get a lot of snaps. And I do what I looked up to find this information is Kroll had gotten 40% of the slot usage through 2 preseason games. And Kroll, I don't even know if he played in the first preseason game, right?
I don't think he did.
Yeah. So, and that's worth noting. Kroll is playing out the slot a little bit more, and Shaquan Davis is the guy in the slot mostly when he does play.
I can't find anywhere to see if he practiced recently.
Shaquan Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I'll look it up here. Go ahead. We haven't touched on the Texans side too much, but not as good as the Saints. But which one would you choose if you had to choose one?
Man, I'm just going to go with Xavier Hutchinson and Johnny Johnson. I think Xavier Hutchinson kind of let me down last week, but let me pull up the targets. Johnny Johnson went off. they have a lot of bodies. And like I said, they're going to play those starters, which always hurts. When you already have a big receiver room and then you play the starters, it's just no bueno. But Johnny Johnson caught both of his targets, 26 yards. And that was basically the highlight of the wide receiver room. So that kind of speaks volumes there. Hutchinson, 2 targets, 1 catch, 2 yards. Even in college, like he catches those short. He's a screen pass kind of guy. He can literally get 5 catches for like 30 yards, but that'll do sometimes. Bachman, 3 targets, led the wide receiver room, but he got put on the IR. Camp got 2 targets. I mean, it's a bad situation here. Mike Boone led the running back room at 6 targets. So, yeah.
Shaq Davis practiced on the 24th for what it's worth.
Okay, perfect. So that puts us at 6.
Yeah, so he'll definitely play because I just see.
What about Lynn Bowden? Because that'll be massive too.
At Brooke Chesney tweeted out that Shaq Davis made a really nice catch after a throw from Heiner and 11v11 on August 24th. So yeah, I mean that's good to see. I mean I would definitely be interested in a slot guy because their floors are a little bit better. Let's move on from Saints wide receiver. And even Lucas Kroll. We already talked about him a little bit. Texans tight end. Anyone interest you there? If not, we can move on and get into our kicker and defense spiel.
I don't see much. I keep playing Mason Shrek, but he kind of let me down last week. But he scored the week before last, so for name value, Shrek. But that's mostly a classic play. Like you're not playing that guy on Showdown, man.
Yeah,
I think it's very unlikely that a Texans pass catcher hits the optimal.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you 100%. I don't even think it's worth really spending time on. So, I'm kind of getting on board with the men's Saints 1 wide receiver thing. That could definitely be something I'm going to do today. And Lucas Kroll is, one Saints pass catcher. I'll say that. Yep. So obviously, kickers and defenses very apparent on a Showdown slate. Will Lutz and Blake. Was it Groupie? Is it
Groupie?
Groupie. I kind of want to just call him Groupie. Groupie and Will Lutz both kicked the hell out of the ball last week. Did both very well. But if I know anything in life is that I'm not playing any split kicker situation ever in my life. And I will not do that today. I will not be a change man today at all. I will X them both from my player pool. And then I'm going to move on over to the Texan side of the ball. And I'm going to select Kai Fairbairn quite a bit. I just think the one kicker situation is, it's decent in Showdown format. If you give me 8 points, I'm happy. And he has upside for maybe double digits. Kurt, what are you doing with Fairbairn?
I think we play him. And like I mentioned on the playbook, give 5 points and then just go. Your competitor is hyping up Davis. They said he should play and get a lot of slot usage. Competitor.
Yeah, I don't know.
My competition is myself.
Yeah. That's why I didn't highlight. I don't know who it is. But anyway, Fairbairn, I don't know. 5 points would definitely not be good enough. I'll say that, Kurt. I'm trying to win tournaments. All right? I'm trying to get 20K to first.
Have you looked at the winners? Their worst play. I'm saying it'd be your worst play, but 5 points. People are winning with guys with 2 points. Are you high?
I don't want that. I don't want 2 points.
I'm just telling you what people have been winning with in Showdown.
In Classic, yeah, not in Showdown.
No, I'm talking about in Showdown. Like the lowest guy on Showdown is like 2.
I'll look it up. Talk to me about defenses. Which defense do you prefer? I mean, obviously, it's random. It's a 2.5 point spread. It's not really the most, interesting topic to think about. But are you just jamming in defenses tonight? I mean, obviously, I got burned last time doing it with the Ravens and Commanders. I don't really want to do it again, but the defenses have just been a source of just production the entire preseason.
I think we talked about this on the last Showdown show, but like just doing one defense, because it turns out usually just one ends up having like a pretty good game, like the 8 points, and the other one gets like 2. So I think picking one and then just getting the nut upside from your other spots is probably what you'd want to do to get like top 5 in GPPs. Whereas cash, you just kind of play both, take the floor because they're going to get you points. So I'm going to do just one for my GPPs, and I'm going to lean on even every time you do this, you think logically and pick the right defense. It's the other one that gets like a punt return or some stupid shit. But give me the Saints D because the Saints offense has looked really impressive, and Jake Heiner's looked impressive. He's not turned the ball over yet, knock on wood. And maybe we get a whole fourth quarter of E.T. Perry, which would be awesome for the Saints D.
Yeah, no kidding. So I stand corrected. Chargers defense got 2 points in the winner last time. So, yeah, he definitely got me there. The Saints defense, I believe, was also in the winner too. So Saints back-to-back 20K shippers, maybe. I mean, why not go back to it?
I'll tell you what we haven't seen is, which, God, don't jinx you, Kurt. Don't jinx it. But we've not really seen the defense captain been the nut yet.
Yeah, no one could be as good as the Steelers defense the other night against the Falcons, or the Falcons defense in week 1 of the preseason with a 32-point bomb. And we haven't seen that yet. Saints defense got 12 last time. I mean, obviously completely different matchup, completely different things, but with the quarterback carousel, probably an offensive lineman carousel a little bit too. Hopefully, the Texans might be a little bit more of a mess outside the first quarter. If they're going to roll out the starters for a little bit of time, I'll definitely be like, oh shit, we'll probably go down a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's about turnovers and sacks, and the Saints showed that they can definitely get to the quarterback with 5 sacks last week, forced 3 turnovers. I don't hate that. And obviously the Texans side, I mean, Jameis Winston, he put up the first 30-30 season in NFL history or whatever, with 30 interceptions that 1 year. Obviously that's years in the past. However, he is prone to turn over the ball, and Jake Heiner, not really the best either. So I'm definitely going to be overweight on both defenses. I'll probably have, let's see, the Saints defense was 50% last time, and the Chargers defense was also 50%. I think you can use that to gauge it similarly. I think they'll both be around that mark again. I'll probably be overweight on both again. So yeah, I think I'll be interested in both defenses. Kurt, you said, we haven't seen the captain spot. Are you going to play any defense as a captain? I'm sorry if you already answered that.
I don't know. I guess if I'm maxing, I just do what you did, do what we've been doing, just kind of match the field, like 10% at captain.
Yeah, just a little sprinkle.
Yeah, because I mean, I was at the Bucs game yesterday, and we said it was the Brown, it was the Browns game I was watching before I went to the Bucs game. But the Browns 2 pick sixes, they literally gave up 35 points, and still with a nut defense because they had 2 pick sixes. So if that happens, you're just stone dead, because most likely they're not going to give up 35, and they're going to probably be in the optimal captain spot. So you want to kind of cover all bases. But if you're doing 3 lineups or a main lineup, I'm not putting them at captain. I want some upside.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Yeah, I mean, anything else to add? Let's go ahead and get to our plays of the day. I don't think that it's going to be too outside the box, because I think you already are outside the box with the Saints wide receivers. So I'm going to go ahead and predict that you're picking a Saints wide receiver for your play of the day. Kurt, who is it?
Man, give me Jontre Kirkland to build off that game last week. Let them have Shaquan Davis. I think he will be active. I'm definitely going to play him, but give me Kirkland to find the end zone here.
All right. I love it. Jonte Kirkland played really good last week. A couple of big plays. That is Kurt's play of the day. My play of the day. Oh, man. I kind of want to go a Saints wide receiver with you. You know what? I just want to copy you. You know what? I'm going to go with you because I like Kirkland a lot. I think I've been too off the wall with my tight end plays of the day. I need to cut that out. It's terrible for the people. Even though I really wanted to say Lucas Kroll, I'm going to go with you with Jonte Kirkland. I think one of these Saints wide receivers do it. Kirkland had some really awesome plays down the stretch of last game. And if this wide receiver room is as thin as we projected to be, hey, one of those big plays turns into a touchdown. So Jonte Kirkland, the unison play of the day from Run Pure Sports. I am Rubio. This is Kurt.
Wait. I'm going to talk about something else.
All right. Just talk about it, Kurt.
Now, he's also returning kicks, so you can kind of pair him with the same.
Oh, my God. All right, we're done. All right, see you.